Hi, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in to another one of our Ivey MBA Admission Series podcasts. I'm Lindsay Littman. I am the director of our full-time MBA recruitment and admissions team. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I have some fabulous current students, soon-to-be alumni, here today that are going to talk about their experience in the program. So beyond the reputation of Ivey, beyond the statistics, it's about the feelings during the program, the roller coaster of emotions, from the maybe pre-program jitters to the imposter syndrome you might have felt early on, to then get in your groove, for that to then go back to maybe a bit of the imposter syndrome again. It's been a roller coaster. I've heard tears, wine, joy, and all in between. So I'm hoping you can all share candidly your experience to let others who are considering the program know what it's really like beyond the classroom, in the classroom, and everything in between. So let's kick this off with some introductions. Jess, let's start with you.
Hi, my name's Jessica. I'm an engineer by undergrad, but I've kind of been all over the place. I was very excited to do MBA, and now that we're almost 5 weeks out from being done, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, because I'm thinking really we're middle of end of March right now, February right now, and so in about a month's time, it's going to be a bit adieu and no more London, Ontario for a little bit, and off to wherever you may be going. So yeah, I'm glad to capture your experiences here before you officially become alumni. Nuria.
Yeah, I know we were saying that the other day. We were trying to figure out where the year went and what we're going to do when we're not with each other like every day. 5 weeks from now. But hi, everyone. I'm Nuria. I have a degree in math from undergrad, and then was with the public service before coming to Ivey. I was with the Canadian Red Cross before. And yeah, now been here for the last 12 months now. I'm looking forward to next steps.
That's crazy. It's a whirlwind for sure. Yeah. It's a bit, I find this time of the year is nostalgic, because you're thinking back to this time last year, you were likely moving, getting settled, figuring out where to go outside of class and all the social spots. So now it's going to be giving that wisdom to the next class that starts in just a couple of weeks. And Bani, over to you.
I'm Bani. I actually moved here from New Zealand to do my MBA, and today marks a year to the day that I landed in Canada. So there's that. I studied psychology and economics, and then I was in a digital transformation and technology space. And then I just did my MBA, and wasn't sure if that was something that I wanted to do when I was applying, but got a great opportunity, moved to a country I've always wanted to move to, and I've been here the last 12 months.
I think you're one of our first who lived in New Zealand before joining the program. So you have that little accolade to add to your, profile, yes. But you bring up a great note, Bani, around the decision to do the MBA. I mean, you've all just gave brief introductions and different backgrounds you've had, and the journey about why to choose to do an MBA in the first place, and then selecting Ivey. So maybe you could each do just a bit of a rundown on that thought process and why it is you chose Ivey. Let's start with you, Bani.
So my background was social sciences. I pivoted to technology. I actually ran my own business in technology. I started when I was about 20 years old. I was in New Zealand. I was running a digital transformation agency. And I realized that I'd never had any formal business education. So I was very young when I made the decision. I was 24 when I started the program. So it was very much daunting. Like I like to say, I felt like I'd snuck in through the back door. I don't know how I got here.
You did not sneak in through the back door. I'm going to be very clear. I clearly are talking about you at the admissions committee. Trust me, you made an impact. Yes.
Thank you. But I think I wanted that formal business education. I've got that entrepreneurial side to me. I see myself doing that in the future. And I just wanted to understand exactly how certain sides of the business worked, where I didn't always just feel like it was trial and error, and I actually knew what I was doing. And Ivey seemed like such an amazing opportunity to be able to learn how to do that.
And you mentioned that you've always wanted to come to Canada, because if I recall, your parents were in India, you were in New Zealand, and at that time there was a bit of uncertainty with coming to Canada. There was some political unrest going through here, and so what was it about, I guess, Ivey in particular that made you feel comfortable and confident coming here?
It was actually really funny. My brother did his MBA in Canada about 5 years ago. He did it in Toronto. But he'd always wanted to go to Ivey, and he didn't do it at that time. But I've been following the school since then. Oh, okay. I loved the case-based method. In my head, I would not have survived in a traditional lecture sort of environment. I would have zoned out. I wouldn't have really paid that much attention. And just to be able to stay engaged, to be able to see real life examples of how people were doing things in real businesses, I think that was the number one driving force for me to want to come to Ivey.
Okay, great. Well, you know, you were young, but you had a lot to offer. And again, like certainly have had a strong impact with the program, but also with your peers and the friendships you've made. So it's nice to see you come through it. Nuria, let's talk a bit about your decision to do the MBA.
Yeah, so I was working from home with the Canadian Red Cross at the time. We were coming out of the pandemic, so I spent the last going on 4 years working from home and loved my job, but knew I needed a change. I was very fortunate, had a nice place, but I was like, there's more to life than these four walls that I've been working with. And I missed interacting with people and talking to people and having that regular day-to-day interaction. And so I started to look at what was next. And I thought maybe a different job that required me to go in person. Wasn't seeing anything I loved. So I thought, okay, what about going back to school? And I have a pretty non-traditional background in terms of education. And so then it became, do I want to strengthen the skills I'm already good at? So go into a quant-based master's, or do I do something that's pretty out of my comfort zone, but really like broadens my business acumen? And that landed me on my MBA and deciding to pursue that. And then it became, well, where do I go? And my sister, she graduated from the HBA. She did the HBA and engineering double degree. We actually overlapped for 2 months, which was really fun.
That's fun, yeah.
But Ivey to me was like the North Star, that was kind of go big or go home and go to Ivey. Mm-hmm. I looked at different programs, but there was just something about Ivey that kept calling me back here. Yeah. With the people, the program, like Bani said, I don't think I'd be able to sit in a lecture-based class anymore. Classrooms are so engaging. And then I kind of decided, I remember sending my resume in online and just being like, okay, I'm going to send it and see what happens. And if it's a no, then it's a no, and I'll figure out something else. And I still remember the email I got back from Amy being like, she bold and underlined saying a really good fit. And I was like, okay, well, now I got
they like me. I don't know. Yeah.
And then from that, it became this goal that I was just like, I can't not see through. And I knew that if I didn't go through with it, I'd always wonder what if. Mm-hmm. And so that was imposter syndrome aside, wondering if I was if it was going to be a good fit. You have those fears of like getting there and crashing and burning. Like you go through the roller coaster. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I knew I'd always wonder what if I did go through.
I love that journey, and I mean I hear this sometimes through with our HBA program, obviously a very prominent undergraduate program. There's a lot of family relations, whether it's siblings or cousins that go through it. It helps plant the seed about the difference with case method learning. I think it's a common feedback why choosing Ivey is case, because as adults, as you've all been working, you've realized that through your professional experiences, it's not just memorizing your work, process book or how things go. It's like actually solving problems live and talking them through and disagreeing in the live environment, but respectfully. And so it feels more natural to keep that going versus to go backwards and just sit and listen. So that completely makes sense why you felt, though it was obviously pushing outside your boundaries and comfort zone, I think it's also really courageous of you to take that step, because it's easy to go the easy way out and to go with what's familiar, right? And I think that you get more out of something if you do push yourself. And Jess, I'm intrigued to hear your story as well.
Yeah, well, I said earlier that I've been around the block. I've been everywhere. So I've done big pharma, public healthcare, non-for-profit, engineering consulting, and I actually did a master's before this, which was case-based. So I went back to the familiar. But what I realized from my first master's was the ability to learn and pivot, and that was something that I was craving after working for so long. I really wanted to take the opportunity to upskill myself and then find a new avenue for me to explore, because I know education just makes me open up my mind to the possibilities. And as an engineer, I'm also a Western alum, so
you got to come back to London, right?
Yeah, it was very comfortable. Yeah. But I also did look at the other schools. So I did look at Smith. I did look at U of T because I live in Toronto. So, budget-wise, that might have made more sense. Sure. But I kind of knew the community I wanted to be a part of, and I knew what I'd be walking into. I had friends who've done Ivey. My partner did Ivey a couple years ago. So it just kind of kept there was a little knock on the door every couple of years being like, are you gonna come back?
Yeah.
It's time. let's go.
Stop putting me off. You know what's happening. Yeah, yeah.
But I do think, I know from this experience, I've gained a bunch of new friends and a whole new network, but also the opportunity to really shift my gears and like really kind of grow more.
I love that because you're right. It's not everyone has to push themselves outside their comfort zone to be the right next move. Familiarity is a good thing as well. But like you said, you're craving something and you knew where to get that and where to come back to it. It is helpful to have those who've gone through the MBA program as well because those HBA is helpful. The MBA conversation is vastly different than the HBA conversation in the classroom of the different experiences. I can only imagine what you've learned from your peers. You know, we know who we've recruited, but I know the stories you share in class and the learnings, it's those almost aha moments of, oh my gosh, why I never thought of that, right? Just because from their own experiences. So it does still gives you that, I guess it would relinquish that craving for you to say, okay, these thought-provoking conversations, this is the place to have it.
Exactly.
So I know there's a lot of positive vibes and feels for Ivy, and I want this to be a very honest conversation of there's also worries, there's concerns, it's a risk, whether unknown or known. There are things that you can prepare for, there's things you cannot prepare for. Comfort with ambiguity is a really big part of the program of being comfortable with the unknown, trust the process, one of our famous taglines. You know, you don't know what's going to happen, you got to trust everyone around you. Let's talk about some of those uncertainty feelings you had, whether it was this time last year when you were getting into London, maybe doing pre-Ivy courses, maybe now hitting in like, I have to be back in class in a couple of weeks. Do I know what I'm talking about? Do I want to contribute? How am I going to do this? I'm going to open up and let anyone chime in on what they'd like to share at this point.
I could start. So even though I had people who had done this program before, they were like, you'll know when you know. Like, you won't, I will explain it to you, but you will get it when you get here. And I will say, like, even before the application process, one of my biggest hurdles was like, can I go back to school at my age? Can I afford this? And those were two monumental hurdles. And we actually had dinner together.
Yes, we did.
And then Kelly's Kelly's Landing. And then we also had like a day in the life of Ivy.
Right.
And I think that was so important for me to just get rid of those jitters.
Yeah.
And then I also did PKP to warm myself back up again to what it's like being in a classroom. PKP, for those who don't know, is
Pre-Ivy courses?
Pre-Ivy course. I actually don't remember.
I know what
PKP.
the K stands for.
I know, that's
but
what I was just trying to figure out. I'm like, what is the K?
Is a course? No, that would be really
Preparatory
poor.
knowledge.
Very,
of course you would know.
I don't know what the other P is.
Preparatory knowledge program.
There we go.
Okay, so together we got there. Okay.
But yes, I did do those things, and it was helpful to get over my initial fear of being back in a classroom, of not just doing things, but actually learning and retaining. And I think one of my other fears was whether or not I was going to click with the people here. Like, I'm totally candid about this. I'm 33. I was 32 when I started the program, on the older side of the class. So I was like, good Lord, am I going to be the grandma who goes to sleep at 9 p.m.? I wasn't. Some days. Definitely not in the first 6 months.
Not at all.
Not at all.
You were not. You were great.
No. I was
You're better than
talking
me.
about studying. But yes.
You're better than me.
You're a leader of social things I've heard around, apparently. So
Can
we
rally.
can
Yeah.
she
Rally
can
the group.
rally.
I can rally. You know, I sleep a little. I do a little 20-minute nap on the desk. Wake
There you
up.
go.
Let's go.
She is notorious for being like, I don't want to go. Okay, no, we're going. And then we'll be the last one out.
Oh my God, I know. That's the worst.
See, this is why I love these conversations. I learn more about you, which I love to hear.
Yeah. We always have a little pep talk. We're like, can we afford to go? Can we make the time?
But
and it was always so important.
Yes.
Just to be out and be social and meet people, because you get connections in the classroom, but you get so much more from everybody when you're actually building those relationships in a group setting, whether it's out for wings like we always did, or out to grad club, which highly recommend.
After exams.
After exams. Oh, the best
All of
way.
core. That was the greatest part of core.
That was the best part.
We had a group that we'd end exams, and then it was like a group text out, okay, we're going to the grad club, see you there.
Yeah, first person out of the exam would go, send the message, and then at one point there was like 6 of us, and the next thing I knew there was 20 of us, and the grad club was not prepared.
But I'm sure they're like, where's everyone coming from?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Across the road.
It was a really good way to decompress.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
It's interesting. I'm having a lot of the conversations right now with the incoming classes or the members of the incoming class. And I'm someone who loves to prepare. I'm someone who loves to plan. I like knowing my next steps. And there's a certain aspect to coming to Ivy where you kind of have to let that go. And I knew I was moving to London and you can, find a place to live and prep as much as you want. You can do the prep courses, which I did find really helpful. But there comes a point where there's almost not much you can do anymore. You just have to let it get started. And I think that's...
Take the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Just like let it all go at that point. And those are the conversations I'm having with the incoming class right now. It's like you've done all the work you can do. At a certain point, you have to just trust that you're ready. And that is hard to do when you're talking with a group of people who are, high achievers. You like to plan. You like to know your next steps. And like to prep yourself to do as best as you can. And you're walking into an environment where you're walking into 150-ish people, like really smart people.
Right.
And so you want to make friends, you want to make good impressions, you want to make sure you sound smart in the classroom. There's all of these different aspects going on. And it's not until you kind of get your feet under you about a month in that you can really start to say, okay, like I'm doing it. It's been a month. I'm doing it. The sky hasn't fallen, like nothing's happened. And then
How anxious were we the first day? Like, I was just thinking about that as you were saying it. Like, the first week.
it was almost a weird, and I don't know if this is going to sound good or bad, but like a numb. Like you knew, I don't know if I was super anxious, but I was just ready to get started and ready to...
It could almost be like, I'm in this now, so it's just going to go to the back of my head and I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
And try to just keep all those maybe unnerving feelings at the back.
The fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and it's common. I think as adults too, meeting new friends, putting yourself out into the wild on it's like being in grade 9 again. You're the new kid in the halls, right?
It's like kindergarten. Will you be my friend? I'll share my pencil crayons with you.
You're into a new building, you're in a new city. Not many are from London. Some have some familiarity, but still you weren't likely just living here. And hopefully you do some PKP courses that does help. I think even just concept alone or knowledge alone, it's meeting people and taking off some of that pressure or edge of, I'm not going to know anyone. Who do I walk up to? Who do I start talking to? And we do try to do some socials in advance, but that really does help. And so does the mixer that before the program starts, you meet your learning team. It kind of like, you can see the anxiety when people walk in the shoulders or by the ears, and it kind of comes down a little bit towards like, okay, I think this is going to be okay. But it's not overnight. Are you feeling comfortable and confident? So Bani, how about you? What were you feeling at this time last year?
Honestly, pretty much the opposite of Nuria. Like, there was no numbness. I was sitting in Toronto, counting down the days to when I would be moving to London. And the night before, I just looked at my brother and I was like, did I make the right decision? What did I do? What am I doing here? And he turned to me and he said, look, it's something that you'll learn from. It could be, you may crash and burn, and you've done that before, but you've gotten up every single time that you have. So it's a learning opportunity. Go in there and just try to be yourself. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that, but sure. And walked into class, met my first learning team, which ended up being honestly the best learning team I've ever had. I had such an amazing first learning team.
There is some magic to the first one.
Absolutely. Like, we were meeting every day, and then having that community, having these girls, meeting all of my, I would say some of my closest friends now that I know that I'm going to take with me to wherever I go for the rest of my life, basically, and these memories as well. It started to then set in, but I was so terrified when I walked in. Little fun fact, I refused to tell anyone how old I was for the first month unless someone absolutely just asked me to my face, how old are you? And I'd be like, 20, 24. But before that, I didn't feel comfortable because I felt I didn't want to be at a place where someone wouldn't take me seriously. It's something that's happened to me before. Right. I was like, I would let people get to know me a little bit more, and then they can find out. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it. And I don't think that was necessary now that I think about it.
No, I totally understand. I didn't say my age either for the opposite reason.
Just labeled as grandma. That's why. I don't
want people to be like, where?
Yeah, you're still using dial-up internet, or I understand that, and I think it's you want to feel that people are valuing you for your contributions, not judging you based on your age. And though you'd hope no one does it, I think people are human, and it can naturally happen. I mean, you could easily prove them wrong once you started speaking. They're like, oh wow, she's done a lot at 24. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. But I get that. I mean, everyone has their own strategy that you feel comfortable doing that. And if that helped you get comfortable, then that was the best strategy for you. Now let's talk about that first month. You know, you're having all these feelings. Some are numb, some are bubbling up, some are right there. How did you manage them? Was there support? How did you find each other? What did you do to get through it so that you weren't in that space on your own?
We were talking about this earlier, actually, before we started this podcast, trying to figure out how we became friends. Like, I don't
really remember.
You don't remember.
It's just, bam, it happened.
Yeah. And I think there is a natural rhythm to it at the end of the day that everyone kind of just settles into. I think the biggest thing is just saying yes at the beginning.
I agree.
The social committee does an amazing job at filling that month, the first month especially, with a ton of activity, be it through the school, career management, the social like teams in the cohort. But when you're tired or you're, you know, it's been a long week, say yes, because guaranteed everyone else is going through the same things. Right. And that's what starts to make those social connections outside of the program.
And you will be tired when you're doing all the cases and you're settling back into the groove of just being in a classroom and you're exhausted and you just want to sleep, and then someone says, "Hey, do you want to go for wings tonight?" You say yes. You have to, and that's how you meet your people.
Somehow, every year, for as long as I've been at Ivey, there is a polarizing difference in personalities of Section 1 and Section 2. And so I guess thinking about, you know, you're talking about the support that you found each other, and you said like saying yes to things, being social, getting out there, that helps you overcome those imposter syndrome feelings, the nerves, the anxiety. When did you feel, because you had mentioned that when you know, and you know you're okay.
Yeah.
When did that happen for you?
Oh my gosh. I actually would say it was a wave. It was imposter syndrome before I even applied.
Right.
I would say I felt like maybe I'm too old for this, or I'm not good enough for this, or why would they pick me for this? And then I remember going through the entire interview process, and my partner's like, you're going to get picked. Like, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't know. But then there was that, and I'd say it like came down when we got through the first month. But then when we started going through like job applications and like getting our first grades back, it was definitely one of those moments where I'm like, man, am I smart enough to be here? Like, I won't name names, but you guys will know someone in our class would just go like this every second to raise their hand and get the question. I'd try and beat him. He's great. He's smart. He's talented. But my point was, I always was like, oh my gosh, he's so smart. He knows how to answer the question well and like has the right words every time. Doesn't, I don't know, flounder all over the place, for lack of a better word. And I remember in class, I'd have those little moments like, oh, did I say that right? And I think one of the moments where we came out of it was like one of our first girls' nights, and like whatever community that is for you. And for the guys, I'd say that was kind of more intramurals. Like they would have their sport moments, and it's the moment that you can unplug yourself from the MBA like experience and just like relax back into yourself and remember the person you were before you got all tensed with your shoulders up, like you were saying earlier in school, and like raising your hand. And I think like taking a balance to have those moments really lets you go back into yourself and be like, okay, no, I'm smart, I'm talented, I'm in the right place. But then that said, like interviews will trigger it, so be prepared.
Recruiting is
just when you think you're out of it.
Just when you think you're out.
You're right back in it.
And it's a natural wave because as a timeline of pre-jitters, February into March, and then April, I kind of know what I'm maybe just doing a bit. And then grades come out and recruiting begins. And then it can be, do I know what I'm doing? How did I say that? Did I ramble? All those feelings can come back. And then, but that's what I like with the program is, not that you go through all these feelings, but I should clarify that. Sorry.
Growing point.
Yeah, we want to put you through the rigor. I like is that because you have each other. And I know when I'm out on the road, I'm speaking with candidates, I know I sound cheesy where I say to them, and I might have said it to any of you over the time, is you're going to find your lifelong friends. You're going to have a supportive environment. Yes, you're going to be uncomfortable. Yes, you're going to be unsure. Self-doubt is a terrible thing that many of us constantly battle with. But if you have people around you to pick you up, to help you, and to hear you, commiserate, go out, vent, socialize, let it go, it makes a world of a difference. And I think that's a unique part of being in London. Because if you were all in your hometowns, you probably wouldn't necessarily hang out. You might still, but not to the degree that you did here. And you wouldn't rely on each other as much, right? Like you're going to go to each other first after a bad grade or you didn't get the interview versus calling home necessarily. You're going to go to your people here. And I think that really does help you get through, a program that's outside of your comfort zone.
That's actually, if you go back to why I picked Ivey, I looked at Ivey and I looked at Smith for that reason, because I wanted a school where everyone moved to the school. It was one of the things that I didn't love about U of T. Like, it's a fantastic school.
Absolutely,
but it's a commuter school. Yeah. People live in Mississauga. People live on the east side. Like, it's everyone commutes in for the day. And I knew that I was putting myself in such a new situation, and I was pushing myself to grow, and I wanted that community, and I wanted a community that was close by. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I've lived the Western bubble. I know what it's like, and I knew that the community I was going to get here was very different, and it would help me get in and out of my feelings.
And also on, calling home when something's going on, I honestly couldn't explain it to anyone if I tried. Like, I've tried explaining to my friends what's going on in the program, and it's just, there's so much context. There's so many layers to everything. And so that's why having your community and having, for me, it was having my girls around who just understood exactly what it was at any given moment that someone was going through, whether it was like a bad grade or an interview or recruiting or just a weird coffee chat sometimes. So yeah, I don't think you could put enough context to it if you tried.
It's hard to get it unless you're in it. And I do understand that. I mean, it's you're right, but it's just too long to explain to you. Let me just go down. But I just know I'll be okay, and I'll get back to you. One thing I want to touch on, I'd love for you to share for the audience, is more around that contribution, the uncertainties of contributing, the knowing it's a safe space. I mean, we want you to share. We rely on you to share. But knowing you could be doubting yourself or thinking, oh my gosh, why did he say it so articulate and I'm rambling for 3 minutes about this? So did you find your classmates supportive, encouraging? Did you, I guess maybe just talk more about contributing in the classroom and the early days and maybe how you've grown since the beginning of contribution and how you're feeling about it now.
I think the first time I ever contributed in class, I had to sit back for a solid 2 minutes. I could still feel my heartbeat in my ears. I was like, what, did I just do this? And then it gets easier. But I think it helps, once again, having the right people around you. When you've said something and a friend of yours comes up to you later on or just drops you a little text in the middle of class saying, oh, that was great. It just gives you that little boost of confidence that you need. And I guess that's what really helped. Now I'm just raising my hand. I'll talk. I have a lot
You're
to say.
You're the one always like this now, right? Okay. Yeah.
But it definitely just changes over time. The first one is a little hurdle that you're trying to get through. And then when the world doesn't collapse around you, as soon as you're done speaking, you're like, okay, I can continue to do this.
Did you guys feel it again when elective started? I did. I felt
this term or last term?
Last term.
Oh, yeah. No, we took a week off. My brain disengaged. I was like, oh, my gosh, we're back.
And we were with Section 2 for the first time.
That's what it was for me.
With Section 2.
You were,
that was a weird dynamic.
Right? So you get...
You're mixed up. You
get comfortable
now,
with your section people, and you know that if you say something silly, they know you've got a track record. Yeah. And it's almost... So I was curious if you guys felt it again, because I did for sure coming into electives. But So I'll answer this question with a story where I raised my hand in class, answered, it was ops, and I answered the question. And the guy sitting beside me, he was on a learning team, great friend. He looked at me and goes, are you having an allergic reaction? And I was like, no, why? He goes, your face is so red. And I was like, oh no, I'm just really nervous when I contribute. And I had always sat in the front, so I guess people couldn't really see or they didn't see that close enough. And he goes, I never would have guessed. I thought you were having some sort of reaction. And that was an aha moment for me, because I realized I had spent so long planning what I was going to say, thinking about what I was going to say, thinking about how it was being heard, all of these things. And yet everyone around me was just like, oh yeah, no, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. And it's that disconnect between what you're feeling and realizing no one's judging you as hard as you're judging yourself. And that was a little bit of the catalyst to me being like, okay, well, there goes that wall. It's time to throw your hand up every time. And again, you go through phases, new classes, new people. You still want to put your best foot forward. But I think as time goes on, you get
more comfortable.
Yeah.
I still get red in the face.
I don't know if that'll
hear.
Yeah.
It'll be the green behind me that makes me look good. I would say that I definitely would get super anxious when I spoke. I, believe it or not, have a tiny bit of stage fright. And it definitely in a room full of people that you don't know for the first time, first term or, first term electives, and you raise your hand for the first time, you're like, oh, I got to make this good. But to Nuria's point, yeah, you put a lot more pressure on yourself. And when you're sitting back and just listening to other people talk after you've talked, you find the little nuggets of wisdom and you're like, oh man, like I never knew they had that experience. That was such a good viewpoint. I wish I had thought of that. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder if anybody thinks that about what I say. I'm like, maybe once or twice. So then it's like the little psychology behind that of like telling yourself like, oh yeah, if I can pull nuggets from that, they can pull nuggets from me. But usually how I dealt with that kind of social anxiety was sassy side comments. The whole class and certain profs are well aware of this.
Okay, that's your tagline, sassy tag.
We had our section 1 wrap-up party, and Jess got side comment Sally.
Side comment Sally. Okay.
I'm trying to think of like a good example.
There's just been so many.
I know.
The first like learning team layout, I was front and center of it. And I remember walking in the first day being like, weird, I don't see my name tag, because I was looking up. And then I looked down and I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, well, because I was always back of the class kind of person. And I was like, well, we're testing. I'm growing. Here we go. Yeah. But we sat basically across the aisle from each other. And
second row on the left.
I have very good hearing. And so
a lot of our class, much
or the acoustic helps, but
acoustics,
it would basically like I would just hear these little side comments throughout class, which were usually in line with a lot of the time like what we're all thinking, but Jess was just
saying them out loud.
It did not work. It was not applied. The brain was connected to the mouth, and sometimes it just flowed too evenly. So like, I think a good example was like a prof would say something and it'd be very like, I don't know, obvious, but like in a good way. And I'd just be like, really?
Oh. Okay.
It'd be those kind of things.
Okay. That helps give some context. I'm thinking there's a whole like line here of what you could be
it
saying
was
on the side.
Quite literally like comical side thoughts, like what you're thinking in your head that shouldn't come out but does sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I was sitting next to a person from my first learning team who like also did the same thing. So it was really bad. We just egged each other on.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
These are times I wish we recorded those classes because I would love to hear some of those
you could still do it.
Sides. Yeah, well, we do know there is that possibility now. So it sounds like then you overcame those fears, you got through it, the comfort of it, kind of quieting that voice, that doubter voice in your mind and saying, it's almost like just relax, you're contributing. Don't make this bigger than what this is. You all got in. We're not in an easy admissions process, so though you don't know exactly why it is you got into the program, we do, and we had faith in you. And so it's nice to hear that you had more faith in yourselves and confidence in yourself as it went through it. Now, I know, again, that wave kind of goes down again when recruiting is in full force. And I think I recall you saying, when we were talking about this conversation about, well, there was hugs and whines and tears when it came to the recruiting time of year. Let's talk through that, because I think with recruiting, it's a different level of self-doubt and insecurity. You're meeting alumni, you're meeting corporate partners, going back to that first day of, I want to show well, I want to make an impression, I want to show the brand well. And I know I'm being judged, right, when you're meeting and going through interviews or networking. So let's maybe open it up to some of those experiences, how you felt, and then overcoming some of that.
For it.
Oh, well, let's just say that's like the most uncomfortable time of the Ivey experience. And we're talking May, June, July recruiting.
Yeah.
And, I personally think like we're all A-star achievers. We want to keep going. We want to be the best of the best. And in class, it started like who's going to, contribute the best. But now we're actually competing for a single position. We're all trying to get to the same place.
Right.
And I think like that level of competition changed the entire dynamic in the class, no matter what section you were in, because everybody now is like, oh my gosh, I really want that. Or, man, I wish I got that interview and this person got it over me. Like, oh my gosh. Or you get the interview and someone else doesn't, and I felt super guilty sometimes when that happened every once in a while. But like for me, the biggest my rocks over here will know that there were weekly tears, weekly stressors, and it's just like you go through the rhythm of trying to prep, and there's so many tools that you can use, whether that's in Ivey or outside of Ivey, to help you. But then you walk away from those and sit there and doubt yourself the entire time. And trying to get yourself out of that mindset is so difficult because everyone's going through it. So it's almost like we're all on the same wavelength of emotions.
Yeah, it's hard to pull out if you're all going through it, right?
Exactly.
Because you're all really in it together and you're not sure, like, where do you see that light at the end of the tunnel? Where do you see that you're going to get through this?
Yeah, where I saw it was probably in stepping myself out of the, like I was saying, unplugging from MBA, like almost entirely, talking to whether that was someone in the, like a company that I wanted to go and just having like a easy breezy, beautiful conversation, not like a stressy, messy kind of interview preppy kind of question. But having those moments and reconnecting with people in your network that are outside of Ivey just helped me stabilize myself back into my feet. And then also kind of the shared venting pool sessions that we would all have, sharing our doubts, sharing our fears, and being like, okay, well, if everyone feels this crummy, I should be fine. Like, hey, we all feel crummy.
We can all be
so,
miserable together, or unsure together,
like
or whatever
I said,
the feelings are.
trauma bonding.
Or have your friends to pull it out. Like, I remember we were heavily interview prepping, and we were on campus, separate rooms. Like, I had a learning room, she had a learning room. And I got a text from Jess that said, "Are you at school?" I'm in room 3101.
My favorite room.
That will be, if you're ever looking for Jess, 3101. And I walked in, and you were in tears.
Oh my God, yeah, that was a bad day.
We've, like, not to say that she's done this, like, we've all gone back and forth, my share of tears. And it was like, okay. I remember being like, we're closing the laptop. Put it away. We went and got dinner at Angelo's.
Oh, that was so good.
And I was like, you're coming over. And
We had wine.
we did have wine. There's lots of wine. I hosted a lot of bachelorette parties this year, so I haven't had to buy wine for a long time. So it was fantastic because it was fantastic because it meant that anytime the girls came over, I was like, all right, let's go. You can help me. But I was like, yeah, no, you're putting it away. We're getting food, and you can be alone together. Like, come over.
Yeah.
We'll do our own thing, but we're not going to talk about interviews for right now. Yeah. And I know during recruiting, we did it with girls' nights where we'd go for dinner and debrief at the end of the day. But it was also like, okay, 5 minutes debrief, and now we're not talking.
Like, let it go, move
That
on.
was it.
Yeah, close the door.
Even when we used to go to grad club, we used to have a little rule. It was everyone gets 5 minutes to say whatever they want about the exam or, well, anything. Just moan, just cry, say whatever. After 5 minutes, you're done. We're not talking about it anymore. We're having a good time, and we're just putting all of those fears to the side, and we're actually living life for a little bit instead of constantly thinking about recruiting or exams or classes or cases.
Yeah.
It's just a time to be.
Because
Do you know I made that rule out of pure frustration?
I'm so glad you did. I feel like it was after the first finance midterm.
I was so mad. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this at all. Nobody talk about it. You get 5 minutes and that's it.
Well, because that's the downside to the bubble, right? Like, you move here for the bubble and the support. The downside is you're all in the same boat.
Right.
And so it can become a little all-encompassing, and that's what you talk about. And when you're going through something like recruiting where, like Jess was saying, you've got a bunch of high achievers who are going for the same job. And in a weird way, when you're applied online and the real world, you don't know who you're competing against.
Of course, right. It's
And
blind.
it's
Right.
100 people, and they're a number. And when you
Right.
see like 100 applicants, in this scenario, you're staring at the other 100 applicants.
Right.
And constantly wondering, like, okay, did they do this better? Did I do this better? Like, where do I stack up? And like Jess was saying, then interviews start rolling out, and it's a weird time frame that career management will warn you about. I naively thought I'd be immune to it. I was not immune to it.
I think it's hard to be immune to it because, like you said, you're all in it. It's in your face, whether you move forward with a role or you don't and someone else does. And to your point, there's guilt when you do move forward and you're successful, when you know someone else really wanted it and you were selected and they weren't. I mean, they wanted different skill sets. And I think that's a challenge. It's stressful because you all want to work when you leave the program. You've got a bill to pay. There's things in life to do, right? And so I understand it's a different level of stress, a different level of emotion. Did you find that the peak of the recruiting stress or the insecurity and all these, the feelings you've had, was it predominantly during that May, June, July? Because recruiting goes on the rest of the year at different levels. Was it just because of the beginning of it? Did you find it tempered down in terms of these feelings, or did you find it continued forward?
I think it tempered down.
For me, that was the peak of it.
Yeah, I think it would have been the peak for most people. And I think it just like eases out a little bit.
Well, I feel like whenever there's a big company name recruiting, the wave starts up again.
Yeah.
But
In certain industries.
In certain industries. But even if it's just like a popular industry with 5 people who will want to go for that kind of job, like say it's like specialty investment banking, there's not a lot of people who want to do that. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are tons of people, but like in the class, there might not be that much of a breakdown. But those 5 people are now in their peak stress. And that can be, you know, at the same time as we have midterms or that we have a 24-hour report. But I think because core is core. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like 6 months of intense learning and then that recruitment season. And then when you get to electives, you feel like you can breathe again from the course load.
You can breathe more.
And so that's when recruiting doesn't hurt as much either. It's easier to get through. It's not as stressful because you're not also looking at what submission you've got tomorrow, what final exam you've got coming up, what cases you have to prep for the next day. And then on top of all of that, you're trying to get in a coffee chat, your case prep, or, you know, so many other things. And then that's basically what starts to feel really overwhelming sometimes.
I think that's the mistake that starts the wave, where you put all of your mental capacity, heart and soul into like this one specific job. And I think that's the mistake everybody makes because what we do is we all turn off social, we all turn off hanging out and like, or do it less to a certain extent. And I think that's the mistake because at the end of the day, it's just a job.
It's that's all it is.
It's so weird to say that.
And it's your first job after Ivy, but that's all it is. That's all it is.
So I'm hearing all of this, but yet you didn't leave the program. So I know that you found your groove. And I mean, like with anything in life is not easy. Everyone has challenges, obstacles, and it's how you get through it. But I would love to hear, just even candidly, some of the really fun times you've had together. You know, like the moments that, of course, that you are willing to share with everyone. That I think just speaks to this newfound friendship and just time in the program. I'd love just to hear more about some of those experiences.
So it was Nuria, myself, and another one of our friends who just decided to put together this social committee. And this was basically an effort coming out of core where we said, hey, we haven't been hanging out as much. Recruiting happened. Times were stressful. Everyone was just going through it. We don't have a lot of time left together. Let's make the most of it. So our 2025 kicked off with a little bingo card session where we created our little 2025 bingo cards. And we had 25 squares, essentially just talking about everything that we wanted to get done, whether that was for me learning how to ski, for
you can cross that off.
I can cross that off. I did. I took a ski lesson. And then the free space was basically just MBA graduate because, you know, we're going to graduate. We're all going to get it. And now we've got Galentine's next week. We're celebrating a late Galentine's, which we're very excited about. And we're doing a favorite thing swap, which is just essentially
Prosecco, if anybody was wondering.
Perfect. I'm grabbing yours.
So this is an organic social committee because earlier on there's larger organized scaled events. Like you said, when electives came and sections sort of dissolved, this is a way to found this is it, our last 3 months.
Exactly. And I think that takes on like a new meaning too. When you've spent every day together for the first 6 months and then you realize like, okay, we've got 3 more months before we all kind of go our separate ways. There is a weird plus, which I know we've talked about, where we're really excited to be able to go for dinner and catch up again and like actually catch each other up on life and not be like, okay, I lived your life for the last week and a half. I know what you've done. But that's how we came up with the social committee. And going back to the magic that was section 1, not that I'm saying section 1 was better, but the magic that was the group of girls in that class. Because we found each other early on and all different backgrounds, all different jobs, all different goals. Really, if you like look at us on paper, there's not much overlap at all. But we clicked in March of last year and we're still friends, like still going strong, still have the group chat, still hosting Galentine's. And people have come in, like there's been a few of the spouses that have joined in, some of the section 2 girl, like but it just organically formed. And from bingo night to Galentine's to just the regular wine nights. Christine brought her puppy that one time.
Yes.
Like it's just those life moments.
Yeah, for me, I'm thinking back to like core and then also stuff that we did more as a cohort. We had theme nights, and Latin night will go down forever in history as one of the best nights here. We went to Elf Furniture Warehouse. The AC was broken. And the entire cohort was stuck on the upper floor.
Warm enough, yeah.
We've continued the social, like the actual social reps who are part of the MBAA. They continued a lot of those like cultural theme nights. So we did like a Lunar New Year. We had a what was the potluck? Do you guys remember?
Oh, the beginning of the year.
Yeah, the Denim Day one.
Denim
Day. Potluck. We had Diwali.
Yeah. So like we had those little cultural moments, and like for me, I think that's super important because that's how we were first meeting Section 2 people. Like you met them before in like some of the socials, but like as the sections become more condensed, you just kind of form the bonds in your class. And it's nice to break out and meet people from the other section who have the same interests as what the social event is. So that was like a super fun way to get to know the class, but also a super fun way to blow off steam.
As we wrap up, I mean, you shared some great stories, and I love that you've all gone through the wave, the roller coaster, and you still found this the right investment for you. You've enjoyed your time. You have lifelong friendships, and you really, like you said, all different walks of life. You probably would have never met each other before, or if you met in passing, you wouldn't have had the same connection and the shared experiences together. Maybe you can end this off how you see fit. You can either share an advice for someone considering the program, maybe something that most surprised you during the program, or any kind of final comment on your own experience.
You guys always look at me like I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
I would say just apply. It's scary. It's daunting. It's, feels like you don't know what you're doing and you don't know if you're going to fit in. But I promise you it's going to be so worth it. And it truly has been one of the best years of my life. I've learned so much. I've grown so much. And so, yeah, my advice would just be just to apply and to let all of those inhibitions go.
All the cheesy sayings are true.
Okay. Thank you.
And I say it when I talk to the incoming class now. I'm like, no offense, Amy, I sound like Amy. Because, all the things that she told me on the calls when I was debating it, where it's you're going to meet lifelong friends, like these, we joke, they're stuck with me. Like, doesn't matter where they end up, they're stuck with me. But you meet amazing friends, you meet amazing people, you grow, you're going to go through the roller coaster. It's not going to be smooth sailing, but it's so worth it. And so I know I did a Women at Ivey podcast.
Yes.
Don't self-select out. I think if we do want to bring like the women aspect into this podcast, women tend to self-select out very quickly, thinking they don't have the right background, the right degree, the right experience, the age, the whole thing. And you belong. Like, you'll find your way. It might not, it might not be exactly what you thought, but you will come out all the stronger and with really good friends.
Well, you all had those feelings.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we go back to the beginning of this conversation. It was, I'm too old. I'm too young. I got in the back door. I'm come from a math background. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I mean, those feelings of imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, to your point, Nuria, predominantly live in a lot of women. And it's really too bad because we are so critical in ourselves. And so it's great to have that sort of vote of confidence from someone who had the doubt and now is through the end of it and saying like, no, turn off that voice. Do it. Just apply.
It will be the best thing.
Great.
I've got two, naturally. I think the first thing is you don't really know the impact you're going to have on people and the impact they'll have on you. So I think it's really important to just make yourself open to that. And I'm surprised by the impact I've had on people. There's times where people come up to me after class and they're like, oh my God, that was so cool. I wish I could do that in a presentation. And I was like, I was scared the entire time. So I'm glad that you took that away. But also, like, there's a lot of people who've had the same impact on me. And I think another key thing for me that was a challenge for me, like, that I put as a personal challenge, was like, I want to branch out of my comfort zone when it comes to meeting people. I want to connect and break out of like whatever cliques we have and just keep connecting with people and new people and just bonding. So you're going to have this opportunity to be in a diverse class. Use that to your advantage. I got invited to Hot Pot, which I didn't even know what that was. And well, I did. I've never done it. And I think having those moments where you just connect with new people in a way that you never would have expected. So the saying yes factor, always saying yes and branching out of your comfort zone, and remember the impact you have on people and that they'll have impacts on you.
Well summarized. That's excellent. And I really do think it captures all the feelings and all the sort of takeaways from this roller coaster, rewarding, transformative, whatever adjective you want to use. We have a lot of those sayings around. But I think it's important, though, having gone through it, that you still, through those challenging times and the tears, that you still see it as like, this is worthwhile. It is meant to go through it. You are resilient. You are stronger than you think. You are smarter than you think. You can do this. And you're not going to do it alone. Thank you so much. This was incredibly insightful. Personally, I enjoyed the stories and enjoyed seeing you now almost out from graduation. I remember some of the conversations, whether you were discussed at our admissions committee or whether met on the road at dinners. It is really rewarding to see you come through it. And I see a difference in yourselves. I see this confidence, this presence. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you feel as I do, that you learn more about the day-to-day experience beyond the stats and the reputation, what it is like to immerse yourself into the Ivey MBA program. Thanks for watching today. If you'd like to engage with us further and you've not yet submitted your resume assessment, that would be a great next step. Simply visit our website, upload your resume or LinkedIn profile, and one of us will get in touch with you to discuss your candidacy for a full-time 1-year MBA program. Thanks again for watching.